So, we have an NBA trade. CJ McCollum has been traded to the Pelicans. The full trade is that the Pelicans get CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell, whereas the Blazers get Josh Hart, Tomas Satoransky, Nickeil Alexander Walker, Didi Louzada, 2022 protected first round pick from the Pelicans. I believe it's top 5 protected, and 2 second round picks. So, I think the biggest thing to talk about here is McCollum to the Pelicans, and I think McCollum can definitely help them out. He is a veteran, 30 years old, but he does a lot of things that the Pelicans need right now and that they will need whenever Zion comes back, whether that's this season or next season or 2 seasons from now. But yeah, I think the 3-point shooting, he's upped his threes recently. I think last year he made the switch, and that's really helped improve his efficiency. He's a good scorer, 20.5 points per game. Can score on all 3 levels. I think, yeah, the 3-point shooting would be the biggest thing that the Pelicans would want, but can also get a basket in the mid-range and get to the rim a little bit. He's a solid playmaker, just a good veteran, good locker room presence. Yeah, just an overall good scorer. I think he can play with the Pelicans right now. With Ingram, I think the fit works because CJ can space out from 3. Ingram can also shoot. Yeah, and I think right now, after starting 1-12, the Pelicans are now in the play-in spot. So even if Zion doesn't come back, I think that's where they'll finish. And, does this trade make them a huge threat this year if Zion doesn't come back? No, I don't think so. But, they could be a little bit interesting in the play-in with CJ now and Ingram and Valanciunas and Herb Jones. So yeah, I think CJ helps them now, and a bit later he's under contract for this year, then 2 more years. So you won't have to re-sign him right away. And yeah, I think he fits well because he can shoot defensively. Okay, they gave up Josh Hart, and it might not be as great. But the Pelicans aren't going to be a team that relies on defense, and I think, they still have Herb Jones, who's a good defender, so we'll just have to see on that end of the ball. But offensively, if I talk more about the future when Zion comes back, now that I think they have a really dynamic option with offense with multiple options, where you have Ingram and McCollum who can do stuff on the perimeter, Zion, who's one of the most dominant paint scorers ever if he comes back, and then Valanciunas, who can also work inside and play around the rim. So I think long term he does fit with Zion, and it is showing Zion that they are willing to go for it. And I think, even though Zion is very injury prone, I think that's the right move to do, because what are they going to do? Just keep rebuilding until they get another top pick? There really isn't. The Pelicans, I don't feel like they're in a great situation, to be honest, just because of Zion's injuries and things like that. But you get McCollum in, and suddenly there's more of a direction of, okay, next year, if we're healthy, we can compete in the playoffs, and we can, I think be a top 8 seed, let's say, with this team, obviously dependent on a lot of factors. They also get Larry Nance Jr. and Tony Snell. I think Larry Nance, the potential of him is sort of better than the actual version of him, because in theory, he can defend, he can shoot a little bit, he's the ideal small ball 5 to put next to Zion, and he can also pass, but he is injured a bit, and he's not a great 3-point shooter, so we'll just have to see. I think it could be a nice piece, help them out right now off their bench. And then Tony Snell, maybe it can give them a bit of defense as a 3-and-D guy. So for the Pelicans, I think this is sort of what they wanted out of a trade. And then if we look to the Blazers side, I think the biggest thing would be the first round pick and, maybe Nickeil Alexander Walker, because he is a young player. So with Nickeil Alexander Walker, he's in his 3rd year, and he's averaging about 13 points a game. He's shooting pretty poorly. Under 38% from the field, which is just rough. In an ideal world, he can develop and be sort of a microwave scorer off the bench, maybe that type of role where he can run the second unit and get his own baskets and play make a little bit. But I'm not sure if he's going to happen. He definitely needs to improve the efficiency, but who knows? Maybe with a bigger role in Portland for the rest of this season, he can help. He can develop. And then Josh Hart, he's a good role player. I was surprised the Pelicans gave him up because he's the type of guy you would want to keep when acquiring CJ and building around Zion and stuff. Because he can defend at his size. He's a really good rebounder, and I think, yeah, he's the type of role player that I think that I could easily see the Blazers keeping him for next year if they're interested in sort of being good next year around Dame and Anthony Simons likely. Or I could see them trading him and getting value because I think a lot of teams would want Josh Hart with what he brings. And then Thomas Satoransky expiring. And then the pick, I think the pick is going to be a pretty good pick. I think somewhere from, around pick 10 to 14, I would assume is where it'd be. And that's a pretty decent first round pick, plus their own pick, plus 2 seconds. I mean, I don't think this is a terrible return for CJ. I think ideally you'd want, on the player side, maybe, someone you could really look and say, oh, we got this guy in return for CJ, and didn't really get that. But, you have to think, I think for right now, just this trade in the moment, I don't think it's a terrible trade for the Blazers, just because I don't think CJ had that much value as a 30-year-old with 2 years left on his contract at over $30 million. So the Blazers, at least they're clearly committing to the rebuild. I think their hope is that they do sort of what some teams have done, where they get a high pick this year and they draft a guy who can really make an impact immediately, and then next year they come back with high pick and Dame, and Anthony Simons. We'll see what they do for the rest of the trade deadline. They still have Nurkic, who could be moved. They've obviously already moved Powell and Covington, so we'll see. Overall, I think seems like a pretty okay trade for both sides. I think if Zion gets healthy, then the Pelicans could really be a threat. I think more likely scenario next year, the Pelicans are a bit more of a threat and a dynamic offense. And for the Blazers, yeah, an okay return for the moment. At least they got the first round pick. Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe.